Hi everyone, my name is Karis and welcome back to my corner of the internet where I talk about books and other things that I enjoy. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my February wrap up, so talking about the books that I read in February. There are 6 of them. I would say that I had a fairly decent reading month in February. In terms of quantity, I did pretty well, especially in comparison to the previous year when I read 7 books between January and August. Yeah, I had a really good reading month, but in terms of like just finding time for reading, I feel like I didn't really do a lot of that this month. I've been doing reading sprints on a Friday night with Rhiannon from Welsh Reader, and we probably spend about 2 hours of that time like reading, and genuinely outside of those reading times I don't feel like I've done a lot of picking my book up this month, but I'm really glad for them because they have definitely helped. I did read mainly for my TBR, I think, but if you saw that video you know that was very overambitious. I did not achieve everything on that. You may have seen that some of the things from that have already moved on to my March TBR. Am I going to finish them in March? Who knows? But that's for another video. Let's just get on with talking about the things that I did read in February. As I said, there were 6 things. 2 of them were children's books, 3 of them were adult books, and 1 of them was, I don't really know how to categorise it, so that's the one that I'm going to start with because it was also the one that I read first this month, and that was Erins Diary by Lisa McGee. I apologise about the ring light, I will try and hold it still at an angle where that's not going to get annoying. This book is a companion to the TV show Derry Girls. You may know that I am a huge Derry Girls fan. It's probably my favourite TV show. I love it so much that in 2019, after having binge watched the show several times, I had a few days of annual leave left and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to Derry. So I booked myself a flight to Belfast, had a few days there, did a few classic touristy things like going to the Giant's Causeway, and then got the bus to Derry and had a few days in Derry as well. So you may know if you've seen Derry Girls that the first season starts with one of the characters, Orla, reading out Erin, who is her cousin, and another main character reading out her diary. And this book basically starts with that as well. It more or less follows the plot of all of season 1 and then I think most of season 2, although I think some of it's cut out. I can't remember certain things being in here. So you're not really getting too much that's not in the show, but it was really fun to see it all written down from Erin's point of view. There's a lot of mixed media in this as well, like school reports, pictures, doodles, that sort of thing. I did actually listen to this on audio while also reading the pages, so I could still see the mixed media, but I could listen to it at the same time because the actress who plays Erin in the TV show narrates the audiobook. So I thought that was really great for giving that little extra level of immersion in the story. I didn't give this a rating because I wouldn't even know where to begin with rating it. It's so different to most of the other things that I read, but I did really enjoy it, and if you're a fan of Derry Girls then I would definitely recommend picking this up. And I know that it's like confirmed that season 3 is going to be this year, and I cannot wait. Honestly, 2021 saved. The next 2 books that I read were for Wilsathon, which was the Jacqueline Wilson themed readathon that I hosted with several of my lovely friends, and it was just such a fun week. I really enjoyed going back to my childhood a bit, picking up some books that I haven't picked up in a really long time, watching Tracy Beaker for the first time in ages. I did a video where I tier ranked all the Tracy Beaker characters if you're interested in that. Spoiler alert, Roxy Wellard is the queen of the dumping ground. I will have no disputes on the matter. It was just a really lovely week, and it was so nice to see other people taking part and being able to discuss our favourite or least favourite in some cases Jacqueline Wilson books over the course of the readathon. So I did vlog the entire week, so I'm not going to talk about these too much here because you can see my full thoughts and feelings as I was reading the books in that. But I did manage to read 2 books throughout the week, which wasn't the most, but they are both like quite long, even if they are children's books. They were 2 of my 3 favourites when I was younger, the other one being Vicky Angel, but as I have reread that one in the past couple of years, I decided to prioritise these 2, and they were My Sister Jodie and Candy Floss, and I just had the most amazing time reading both of these. My Sister Jodie I read first. The thing that really struck me in it, and I said in my vlog, is the fact that when I was younger I remember thinking that Jodie, the older sister, was so cool and she was so old and grown up. In my head I translated that to her being like 17, 18, and that was what I was expecting when I went into this. And then I realised that she was 13 and I was like, oh my gosh, she is not old at all, she is a child. And that was a really interesting perspective to have now, being so much older than her whereas obviously the first time I read it I was younger than her. And also the big thing that I noticed in this was a lot of foreshadowing for what's going to happen at the end, basically like right from the beginning. As with the Derry Girls book, actually I haven't rated either of these because I just don't know how to rate something that I loved so very much and has such sentimental value to me. I can't put a number on it. So yeah, that was the first one. And the second thing that I read for Wilsathon, as I said, was Candy Floss. And honestly, I loved this one even more than my Sister Jodie. I was expecting that one to be my favourite of the two, but I think this one is. And this is one that I can imagine reading, like, if I ever have kids, like wanting to share this story with them, because it's just so wholesome, so lovely. It was just really fun. I flew through it. There wasn't any like major drama or trauma in it. There was a couple of things that happened that wasn't great, but in terms of like Jacqueline Wilson books in general, this is a pretty trauma-free experience, which was really nice, especially after my Sister Jodie, which is quite intense. This one also packed like a bigger nostalgic punch, I think, because I would have been about 12 when I first read my Sister Jodie, but when I first read this one I was definitely at primary school. I was 10, so it just took me back to being in the primary school classroom, and then I had a bit of a crisis because I was like, that was so long ago. Then after that I finished 3 more books, the first of which being Skin by E.M. Reapy. I was so excited to read this. I got it in my Books That Matter subscription box in January, and I'd never heard of it before that, but when I read the blurb I was like, that sounds amazing. So the blurb sort of pitches it as this book about a woman whose life is sort of crumbling around her. She's left a relationship and she doesn't really know what she's doing, and she decides to quit her job to go off traveling. I thought it was going to be about her sort of searching for a place in the world and like searching for herself, as cliche as that sounds, and then ultimately realizing that that comes from within more than where you are in the world. But I also thought that travel was going to be a really big part in this. We were going to see so many different places around the world, and while we were in different countries, like sometimes it felt like we were just there for the sake of it, you know. It wasn't a travel book. Travel wasn't so central to the book as I thought it was going to be, and it wasn't really connected to the story, other than I think for her just to be in a different place and as a model for her to meet different characters who she might not otherwise have met, and just a way of being like, oh, we need this sort of character, oh, she can meet them in a hostel. We need this sort of character, oh, she can meet them in a bar in Peru, or did she? I don't even remember if she went to Peru. I wasn't a big fan of this. I think I gave it a 2 stars. I don't think that's just because it wasn't travel focused. I think I could have got past that, but the thing I really didn't like about this is just it felt very surface level a lot of the time and very shallow. The relationships that the main character forms, I swear she met them and then half a page later it was like she'd known them her whole life. And I know that people are extroverted, people can just have conversations with people. I'm not like that, so I can't relate to that, but it wasn't that. It just felt very weird and very unnatural the way that she formed all these relationships with people. The other thing that I didn't really like is, first of all, this book, a big focus of it is body image, weight. The way that the character thinks about herself in the first part of this book is very negative, and I would say if you have any sort of triggers surrounding body image, fat phobia, food in general, eating disorders, binge eating, I would steer clear of this. I found it very intense at the start. I think maybe it's meant to make you feel uncomfortable, but I don't know, I just found it a bit much. But that wasn't the real thing that I didn't like. The thing that I didn't like is she seems to like get over the way that she thinks about herself throughout the course of the book, but you don't ever really see why. Basically, she'll be in one country feeling a certain way, and then the chapter will end and then the next chapter will start and she's in another country, but you never saw her leaving the one country. She's just there. You have no backstory as to why she's there, and then she feels a different way. And I guess it's meant to show like progression, and maybe that's intended, but I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more reasons as to why she went on this journey. Like, it just didn't feel like a journey, it felt like stepping stones, and you were seeing like snapshots, but you weren't seeing the journey that the character had gone on behind that. Does that make sense? It's really difficult to explain. The character by the end of the book had a bit more of a purpose and had found something that she enjoyed doing, but also I was like, I want to know why. I want to connect to you. I don't just want to be told that this is how you feel now. I want to know why. Maybe I'm missing something and that was the whole point, but for me it just just didn't hit the mark. The next book that I finished in February was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which wasn't on my TBR. This was one that I saw in the supermarket. Went a bit spend happy, as you'll see in a book haul that I've got coming up. I've been like interested in reading this for a while, but didn't really want to buy the hardback, but when I saw it in the deal I was like, why not? And then I was on a reading sprint and just wanted something that I thought I was going to get through quickly, so I decided to go for this, and I definitely did read it quickly when I actually picked it up. I do kind of wish that I'd have sat down and read it in like one sitting or over the course of a couple of days, because I started it in one Friday sprint and finished it in the following Friday sprint, and that sort of break that I took I think sort of pushed me out of the story a bit, and it would have been more impactful if I'd have just read it in a short period of time. However, I did really enjoy this. This follows a character called Nora, who basically at the beginning of the book decides that she wants to take her own life. So obviously that's something to bear in mind before you go into this, but she attempts that, and then she finds herself in this place called the Midnight Library, which is basically a place where you can go into different versions of your life if you've made a different decision. So for example, in Nora's case, you learn that her father wanted her to be an Olympic swimmer, and she was a really good swimmer. She had the potential for it, but she decided one day that she was going to stop. One of the versions of her life that she goes into, she sees what would happen if she hadn't made that decision. So it's all about like the sort of what if I'd have decided this instead of this, what if I'd have gone down this path. And I really liked the concept. I found it really interesting. I really enjoyed seeing how Nora's life could have been different in different versions of it, and I did really like the overall message. Like, it's a story of all the possibilities of life and how I guess you can dwell on the what if, but you're never gonna know. You might think that if your life had gone a different way it might be amazing, but then the knock-on effect that decision could have to like other things could mean that it's like catastrophic in other areas. I did bring it down a star just because I did find it a little bit repetitive in places. Like, I got the message pretty early on, and I thought that it was kind of like hammered home a bit too much in certain places. Obviously she went into quite a few lives, and I always found that interesting, but I found like certain things happened sometimes that were just intended to drive this message, and it was sort of a bit like, we get it. I am really glad overall that I read this, and I have seen that it's being made into a film, which I will definitely watch. As I was reading the first couple of lives in this, actually I was thinking that it would be a really good TV series, so I'm interested to see how it would be made into a film and all condensed, because there's quite a lot going on, but I guess it is quite a short book. And the final book that I read this month was one that I actually started in January, but I'm very glad to have finished it this month, and that was Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This book was really kindly sent to me for Christmas by Rhiannon from Welsh Reader, so I know I've said thank you loads of times, but thank you once again, Rhiannon. I really enjoyed this book, as you already know. So this book is very out of my comfort zone. I don't really normally read a lot of fantasy, or any fantasy really, but I did really enjoy it. I'm really glad that Rhiannon gifted it to me, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up like of my own accord. I've heard good things about it before and thought, oh yeah, that's interesting, but I don't think I would have ever prioritized it. But then because I got it, I was like, I really want to see what I think of it. Even though I've literally just finished it, I don't know how to explain it, because it's just so many layers. So I'm just going to read the blurb. I'm sorry if that's annoying, but I feel like I can describe it in 30 seconds by reading the blurb, or you can listen to me try and waffle about it for 5 minutes. So really, I'm doing you a favour. Miriam is the daughter of her village's moneylender, but poverty beckons as her father's too kind-hearted to collect his debts. Then Miriam hardens her own heart and takes up his work. Her success creates rumours she can turn silver into gold, which attracts the fairy king of winter himself. He sets her an impossible challenge, and if she fails, she dies. Yet if she triumphs, a fate worse than death awaits. Irina's father schemes to wed her to the Tsar. However, their dashing ruler hides a terrible secret, threatening mortals and winter alike. Torn between deadly choices, Miriam and Irina embark on a quest. It's one that will encompass sacrifice, power, and even love. That's the basic summary, but there's so many more layers to this. And actually the blurb talks about 2 women, but I would argue that there's 3 young women who are sort of really central to this story, but that's beside the point. When I first picked it up, it was snowy outside, which was just the perfect time for this, because this is so icy and cold and snowy, and that atmosphere was built so well. And I just really enjoyed following all of these characters and seeing how all of their stories came together. It was quite a surprise to me because it was told from lots of different perspectives and not always the perspective of the characters you were rooting for, and I really enjoyed that, getting an insight into lots of different characters' minds. I think that really helped to drive the story for me rather than being from like a third perspective and just describing what was going on. I did listen to a big chunk of this on audio just because I was reading it quite slowly in the physical form, and I really enjoyed the audiobook as well, so I would definitely recommend listening to that. And I just find audiobooks sometimes with books that I am intimidated by a really good way of going about it because it makes them so much more accessible, and overall I gave this one a 4 stars as well. So those were all of the books I read in January. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what you thought of them, or just leave me an emoji to let me know that you've watched the video. Other than that though, that is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're all keeping safe and staying well, and I will see you again next time. Bye!